Hi, I'm Mike McCormick here at GBTA Studios live in Mexico City, and I'm here with Michael Roberts. He's the Travel Security Management Director for International SOS. Michael, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, certainly risk, duty of care is on everybody's minds virtually all the time, every day anymore, and certainly for our audience, they play a big role in helping make sure that our travelers get to where they need to go and back home again and all safe and sound. When you talk about the workforce today is everybody's mobile, going to destinations that they're less and less familiar with than maybe in years past. What should they be focusing on when they think about Mexico, Latin America travel?
Right, and I think you hit on a couple of really important trends. Three come to mind. One is increasingly mobile workforce.
Yep.
Another is companies going to places where they didn't previously travel due to the globalization of the economies.
Yeah, and don't necessarily have local people on the ground to help their travelers when they're in market.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But as well as risks being in places where you may not expect them. And you look back at just this past week, there were two active shooter events in
Right.
New Zealand
Right.
and one in the Netherlands, which
Right.
Usually when you're thinking about risks, you're focused on maybe Mexico or Brazil because it's so much in the news. But pretty much anywhere something can happen.
Right.
Now on the health side, focusing a lot on Latin America, the key point really is to understand before the trip what the risks are in each
Right.
area and ensure you have the right vaccines.
Right.
Some countries, Colombia comes to mind, won't even let you in the country if you don't have the proper vaccinations, and you have to show it going in.
Right.
So then it becomes not just a health issue and duty of care issue, it's also a business continuity issue.
Right.
About people being able to get to where they need to go.
Right, and accomplish what they're there to
Yeah,
do. Yep.
and certainly in terms of Latin America, common things that you need to watch out for are malaria, typhoid, yellow fever, Zika, hepatitis,
Right.
and keeping people informed of how to stay safe and how to avoid health risks in country is critical.
Yeah, because the big misconceptions are as tragic and emotional as the terrorism-related events are. You mentioned the active shooter occurrences just again, but the impact those have is relatively small as opposed to really things like again health, general health and well-being issues, petty crime, data security. Those things are far more prevalent. And in many ways, far more preventable if you take the right precautions, right?
Yeah. Yes. It's all about preparation and training, really.
Yep.
That's key. And two examples in security, thinking about Mexico, people are always afraid of being kidnapped. That's in the news, kidnapping,
Right.
and it is a big problem, but the chances of a traveler, particularly an international traveler being kidnapped, is very small.
Right.
It's far more likely that if an incident occurs, it will be some sort of petty crime, a
Right.
mugging, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, having their card cloned or something like that. Things that they can avoid if they're briefed with location-specific information prior to departure.
Right. And so in our research, we 3 in 10 travel managers said, candidly, that they could not locate their employees in an event of emergency.
Right.
I mean, just on its surface, we know anything more than 0 is too high, but that number is way too high. What should people in, buyers in their roles, what should they really be thinking about as it relates to a travel risk program?
Well, certainly the baseline minimum is knowing where people are
Right.
at any given moment
Right.
when something occurs. Secondarily, and really equally as important, is being able to communicate with them.
Right.
And when there's an incident, to make sure that they're
Right.
okay, where they can request for help if it's needed. And there's different levels of keeping track of employees. For example, we offer a solution on various levels. One, it's a travel tracker where the traveler checks in when they get to a location.
Right.
The information is fed through the travel agency to HR or the travel mobility manager. But there's a part that the traveler does to say, I'm here now. But we also suggest in some cases to do constant tracking and monitoring,
Yep.
GPS-based, every 15 minutes sending out a ping in geofencing areas that might be very high risks.
Right.
Just to know if something's happening immediately. It just
Yeah.
depends on the location.
Well, and to your point, a few things there. I mean, one is that, you know, even for in your certain city, certain location that may have a very, let's say, good reputation as being a safe market, it doesn't mean that in a certain part of that town, it could be a high-risk area, and somebody unknowingly goes there and puts themselves at a much higher level of risk, right? I mean,
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And being able to geofence those areas and getting an alert if somebody's in that area gives the security manager the chance to call and say, you're in this area, is there a reason for that? Is everything okay? And just make sure, you know, that the traveler's safe.
So I see you have in front of you a travel risk map. I know this is something that your organization is very proud of. Tell me a bit about that, and you know, as part of all what you do to help companies manage their risk.
Yeah, sure. So the travel risk map, it's an annual product, but it's an ongoing endeavor.
Right.
For example, online, it's updated constantly. So I would encourage people to go online. If you're a client, you can enter your code as a member and download it. If you're not a client, with information about you and your company and contact info, you can download it. But it covers essentially medical risks and security risks all over the world.
Right.
So each country has a designation about the sort of medical capabilities that each country has and how risky it is for traveling health-wise. And we break it down regionally for security issues. For example, coming back to Latin America and Mexico, Mexico overall has a medium travel rating. However, areas like Michoacán, Guerrero, Tamaulipas are high-risk areas due to the local dynamics. So we also include information about where our assistance centers are, as well as our incident response centers and our clinics. So it's a fantastic tool, it's very popular. A lot of clients have them framed and hanging on their wall, and I strongly encourage people to, you know, drop by and pick up a copy if they want one.
Right. Well, Michael, thank you for sharing your insights on certainly a very, very critical topic to all of us.
Right.
And good. Thank you for joining us here in the studio.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate the time.
And I'm Mike McCormick, live from GBTA Studios here in Mexico City.